Picture yourself behind the wheel of a car on a road that never ends. You fixed the steering wheel in place 4 decades ago. No one has touched the accelerator. No one has touched the brakes. There is no weather. There is no terrain. There is only forward motion through absolute nothing. Now picture that without any hand touching anything, the wheel moves. Not a drift. Not a wobble. A deliberate turn. The car angles itself toward a lightless stretch of desert, rolls to a stop, and sits there. Waiting. This is not a thought experiment constructed to make a philosophical point. This is a description of something that is actively occurring right now, 15 billion kilometers from where you are sitting. NASA confirms that its Voyager 1 spacecraft is once again transmitting usable data. But the version of events being shared with the general public covers only the surface of what actually happened. The deeper story is something the agency has been considerably more reluctant to discuss. For 46 years, Voyager 1 did exactly what it was told. Transmit. Hold course. Never deviate. Then, without any command from the ground, without any mechanical justification, the antenna moved. And when it stopped moving, it was not pointing at Earth. It was aimed at a region of space that, by every chart and catalog available to modern astronomy, contains absolutely nothing. What followed was not a malfunction in any conventional sense. What followed was a sequence of events that has no satisfying explanation within the boundaries of known physics. Voyager 1 did not simply break down. It made a decision. Or something made that decision on its behalf. To understand why this matters, you need to understand what Voyager 1 actually is. It is a machine born in 1977, powered by roughly 800 watts of plutonium-generated electricity, carrying an onboard memory capacity smaller than a single compressed image file on your phone. It has no artificial intelligence. It has no biological detection systems. It was engineered for one singular purpose: to leave. It flew past Jupiter. It swept past Saturn. In 2012, it crossed the heliopause, the theoretical outer edge of our Sun's sphere of influence, and entered the interstellar medium, that vast, borderless expanse of space where our star is reduced to nothing more than another point of light among billions. Out there, solar wind does not reach. Gravitational guidance from our own system is negligible. By every principle of physics we understand, nothing should happen to an object drifting through that region. For more than 4 decades, Voyager 1 drifted in total silence. The most distant human-made object ever to exist, floating through the cosmic equivalent of absolute sensory isolation. And for 4 decades, that silence held. Then came November 6, 2023. The silence did not fade. It shattered. It began with a transmission that looked wrong from the first moment analysts reviewed it. The incoming data stream was distorted in ways that did not conform to any recognized pattern of signal degradation. Engineers initially attributed it to the usual candidates: cosmic radiation interference, deteriorating wiring in a nearly 5-decade-old machine. Reasonable assumptions. But then something happened that those explanations could not cover. Voyager's fault protection systems activated. These are emergency protocols buried deep in the spacecraft's programming, designed to engage only under conditions of catastrophic physical crisis. A sudden uncontrolled spin, a catastrophic systems failure. They are not supposed to activate without a triggering event. Yet they engaged with no command from mission control, no recorded debris strike, no identifiable cause. Voyager began behaving as though it had been struck by something that left no physical trace. Telemetry logs became unreadable. Orientation records disappeared. Onboard clocks drifted out of synchronization with each other. This was not the gradual data degradation of an aging machine. Something had reached into the deeper operational structure of the spacecraft and disrupted it at a level that its own systems could not categorize or process. It was reacting, in the only way its programming allowed, to an event it had no framework to describe. If the data anomalies were alarming, the physical behavior of the spacecraft was something else entirely. Shortly after the emergency protocols engaged, Voyager 1 did something that its design makes categorically impossible without external input. It turned. The high-gain antenna, the dish hardwired by 46 years of operational history to maintain a fixed lock on Earth so the spacecraft could maintain communication, shifted its orientation. Not back toward Earth. Away from it. It pointed itself at a sector of sky that contains no catalogued star, no known object, nothing that should have any gravitational or electromagnetic influence on the probe whatsoever. NASA engineers ran every simulation available to them. Software corruption. Thruster misfires. Solar pressure accumulation. Electromagnetic interference. Each scenario was modeled and each was ruled out. The onboard gyroscopes had registered a genuine torque event, a measurable physical rotation, with a spacecraft drifting through the most thoroughly empty region of known space had been physically redirected. The adjustment was subtle, precise, and entirely without mechanical justification. It had the character of an intentional correction, as if something in that darkness understood the structure of the probe and knew exactly how to reposition it. And the destination of that repositioning was a null zone, a theoretical region where gravitational forces from surrounding mass distributions cancel each other into equilibrium. A location Voyager 1 should have had no awareness of and no reason to seek. Once the antenna locked onto that coordinates, the spacecraft's behavior shifted. The erratic readings settled. The confusion disappeared. And the plasma wave detection subsystem registered something new. It was not the chaotic, disorganized static of interstellar space. It was a tone. Consistent, sustained, holding steady at a frequency of 30,000 Hz. Research teams studying the waveform described it as the plasma melody, a signal that carried a rhythmic pulse, evenly structured, with deliberate pauses and mirrored internal patterns. Acoustic engineers noted that the waveform moved with the coherence of a composed sequence rather than the randomness of a natural emission. But inside that tonal structure was something that defied easy explanation. Buried within the hum were strings of hexadecimal code, recursive mathematical formulas, and fractal geometric symmetry. Some of the numerical values embedded in the transmission corresponded to known astronomical constants, but rendered with a degree of precision that Voyager's 1970s-era instrumentation was physically incapable of independently calculating or generating. The probe had not produced this data. It had carried it home. Whatever had touched Voyager had used its transmission systems as a vehicle to deliver something back to Earth. The signal itself arrived clean, narrow, and targeted. It had not spread across space the way natural emissions do. It had been aimed, specifically at Voyager 1, arriving at precisely the moment the spacecraft was in position to receive it. Whatever sent it knew where the probe was. And it knew when. While Voyager hummed its impossible mathematical composition through the void, scientists on the ground did not remain passive observers. They acted. Ground-based observatories redirected high-exposure infrared imaging arrays toward the precise sector of empty sky that Voyager had turned to face. Initial observations returned nothing visible. Just unbroken darkness. But the teams kept the instruments running. Weeks passed. Then the data began to accumulate. Something emerged at the absolute threshold of what the instruments could detect. A faint, diffuse luminescence, a shimmering halo sitting at the very edge of visibility. Not a star. Not a galaxy. Not any cataloged object. A glow. And it was not static. The halo pulsed. At first this might have been dismissed as instrumental noise, but the pattern of its pulsing eliminated that possibility. Researchers identified a direct correlation between solar flare events, eruptions of charged particles released by our own sun, and fluctuations in the halo's brightness. Each time the sun fired, the halo responded. The timing was not coincidental. It was deliberate. Synchronized to the rhythm of our star, as if something out there had been tracking its behavior and was now choosing to acknowledge it. This was not a cloud of drifting gas reacting passively to light. Whatever that halo represented, it was monitoring our sun. And when observed directly, it responded to being watched. Then Voyager 1 died. For 12 consecutive hours, the transmission signal from the farthest object humanity has ever launched into space went completely flat. Total silence. In nearly half a century of operation, through solar storms, through radiation exposure that would destroy modern electronics, through the thermal extremes of deep space, Voyager had never gone quiet like this. When the signal returned, the engineers who restored communication found something wrong. Not with the hardware. With time. The spacecraft's internal clocks had reset. Not drifted, not lagged, fully reset. The timestamps embedded in the newly restored data stream did not correspond to any known reference point from Earth's mission timeline. It was as though, for those 12 hours, Voyager 1 had not simply powered down. It had passed into a different context entirely, somewhere operating under different parameters than the ones physics allows for in the